During the days of Hanukkah, we insert in our prayers a special section in the Modim blessing, in the penultimate blessing of our Shmona Esrei, of our Amidah, of our silent prayer, which is then repeated by the Shliach Tzibur, by the emissary of the congregation, who speaks for us all as our messenger to say aloud what we all have said silently. And that section is called Al Hanissim. And you may think that you know it. You know it almost by heart. Al Hanissim, Vala Purkon, Vala Puras, Vala Shuvas, Vala Mechanos. And then it says, Vimei Matisyahu ben Yochanan Karin Godal Chashunai Bonov. In the days of Matisyahu, the high priest, who was a descendant from a man called Chashmon. By the way, Chashmon, Chet is 8 in the Hebrew alphabet. The letter Chet is 8, and Shemon is clearly Shemen, so it is the miracle of the 8th day of the oil is already in the word Chashmonai, and his descendants. When the evil Greek kingdom stood up, Al Amcho Yisrael, Lashkichom Tarosecho, Ulahavivom Mechucheresunecho. When the evil empire of the Greeks stood up against your nation Israel, to make them forget your Torah and to make them transgress your commandments. And then it says what Hashem did for us. You stood up for them in their time of need. Ravdo es rivom, you argued their case. Danto es dinom, you judged the nations in their lawsuit against us. Danto es dinom. No canto es nikmosom, you avenged their vengeance. Mosarto, and you give over. Now count the things that Hashem did for us according to this prayer. Omalato, Ravto, Danto, Nokanto, Mosato. 5 different things. And the Mosato you gave over, you delivered, is also split in 5. Mosato, Gibaurim biyad chaloshim, strong man in the hands of weak men. Verabim biyad ma'atim, and a majority in the hands of a minority. Utemeim biyad taharim, and impure ones in the hands of the pure ones. Urushoy biyad tzadikim, and evildoers in the hands of the righteous. Vezedim biyad elskei sarosecho, and the brazen ones in the hands of those who occupy themselves with your Torah. That's also 5 things, right? It's Giborim biyad chaloshim, Rabim biyad ma'atim, Tmeim biyad taharim, Rishoim biyad tzadikim, Vezedim biyad elskei sarosecho. 5 things. There's something going on with this 5 here. What happened next in prayer? Make for yourself a great and holy name in your world. And for your nation Israel, you have made a great deliverance and salvation like it is today. Now listen, now comes the response of Klal Yisrael. The response of the Jewish nation to these things was, your children came to your hallowed abode. And they cleaned out your sanctuary. And they cleansed your temple. And they lit candles, they lit lights in your holy courts. And they fixed these days of Hanukkah, 5 things. Now, pay attention. Bo, Pinu, Tiru, Hitliku, all took place on the day that they entered the temple. That's when they cleaned out the forecourts. That's when they purified the temple. That's when they lit the candles. The Kovu Shmonis Hanukkah they didn't do on that day. They did not fix, they did not institute the Yontif of Hanukkah, the rabbinical celebration of Hanukkah. They did that only a year later. As the Gemara in Shabbat, it tells the story of the war against the Hellenizers, against the Greeks, and the miracle of the oil. And then it says, L'shona acheres, the next year, literally another year, in retrospect, they fixed the Yom Tov of Hanukkah. We need to understand this. Why did they have to wait a year? What is being told to us here? What's being told to us here is the following. They were not carried away by the military victory that they that they just achieved. They saw very well how flawed that victory was, how it was marred by compromise. They did not gain independence from Antiochus on that day, from the Greek Hellenistic king. That took years and years of fighting, even after Yehuda Maccabi had already died in the battle. They were not fooled by that. They also saw that the rot of Hellenizing was even present in their own ranks. The descendants of these Hashmonoim themselves became the greatest Hellenizers of them all. They were not deceived by that. What they realized in hindsight is this lighting of the candles and the reason to give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even though this was a marred victory, in a certain sense, even a Pyrrhic victory, it actually introduces a period in our history that is a slide towards Roman domination that I mentioned last week. In a sense, you could say that this was the introduction to the disaster of the destruction of the temple. But what they recognized is that the Hanukkah lights were still there. The lighting of our lights on Hanukkah is an expression of Afal Pi Kain. Despite everything else, we still have the lights of Hanukkah. Now I want to go into some calculations. For those who don't like Gematria, this is the moment to switch off. We're talking about Gematria and the secrets that are hidden in Hanissim. First of all, let's take the first quintuplet of expressions. Omadato, Ravto, Danto, Nokamto, Mosarto. Those 5 things add up to 2,816. If you want to, you can check it yourself. So once more, Omadato, Ravto, Danto, Nokamto, Mosarto. You stood up for them, you argued for them, you judged for them, you took vengeance for them, and you delivered their enemies in their hands. 2,860. There is a pasuk that has exactly the same gematria in the Akedah. Adds up to exactly the same gematria, meaning a contrast between what God had done and what we had done, to which God answered. God did not intervene just out of the blue. We had given up and God helped us. No, the Hashmonoim said, Afal Pi, despite the fact that we are very few and there is very little hope of success, we'll take the jump, we'll start the guerrilla campaign against it, and we will get to the Beis HaMikdash and cleanse it, come what may. To that, Hashem answered with those 5 expressions of what he did for us. That is an echo of the spirit of Avraham Avinu, who said, however strange it may be, and however this is going to not lead to what I hoped for, I had Yitzchak as the fulfillment of a promise, and now I'm being asked to give him up. My love for my God transcends everything else. The same spirit was in the Hashmonoim. Their love for Torah and for the giving of the Torah was such that they took the plunge and started this seemingly hopeless campaign, and they were crowned with success. Just like Avraham Avinu was crowned with success in the sense that he had an encounter with God, for which reason he called this mountain Moriah. By the way, the word Moriah comes from Ha'oro'ah, from being shown. He says, Bahar Hashem Yero'eh, on the mountain of God it will be seen, meaning I will see what the true reason is for what I have to go through, when in good time, when God will show it to me. In the meantime, what I do is I obey. Now the 5 expressions, Gibarim, Rabim, Temeim, Reshoim, and Zaydim. Mighty ones, many ones, impure ones, evildoers, and wanton ones. These 5 expressions add up to 1,294. And what is a verse in the Torah that adds up, or a phrase that adds up to that total? You find it in this pasuk. V'lokachti eschem li le'om v'hoisi lochem le'lokim v'datem ki ani Hashem Elokeichem. This, which you find in Shemos, in the 6th parak, in Exodus, in chapter 6, verse 7. The words li le'om v'hoisi lochem le'lokim v'datem ki ani Hashem, those have the same total of 1,294. You come to the next category, the others, the flip side. These were the mighty ones, and now the weak ones. Weak ones, the minority, the pure ones, the righteous ones, and those who occupy themselves with the Torah. This adds up to 2,353. And what is the verse that has that same gematria? You find it in Yirmiyahu this time, in Jeremiah, in the 9th chapter, 23rd verse. Ki v'zosis halalam is halel. This is the only reason why a boaster should boast. Haskel v'yodara osi, to be clever or to be perceptive and to know me intimately. Ki ani Hashem osei chesed mishpat u'tzedakah ba'oretz. I am Hashem who does three things: chesed, kindness to you; mishpat, judgment over the Hellenists; u'tzedakah, justification ba'oretz, in the land. So that is the next. Now another gematria. I have 6 of them here. What are the things that we did in response to this tremendous deliverance that we had? I read it to you. So I have 5 expressions: Bo, Pinu, Kiaru, Itliku, and Kovu. They came, they vacated, they cleansed, they lit the menorah, the candelabrum, and Kovu, and they fixed it at Yom Tov Hanukkah. This adds up to 698. And what is that gematria? Ki fodo Hashem es Yaakov, u'golami ad chazak b'nenu. The words fodo Hashem es Yaakov, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, has delivered Yaakov. Those words add up to the same gematria. The next one, it doesn't stop. We have the 5 objects of what the Bnei Israel, what the children of Israel did. The Via Beisechel, the Via, Heichal, Mikdosh, Neros, and Hanukkah. They came to the Via, they vacated the Heichal, they cleansed the Mikdash, they lit the Nero, and they fixed the Yom Tov of Hanukkah. This adds up to 1,464. And where do we find that? We find it in Tehillim. We find it in the 28th Psalm, where the 8th verse says, Hashem oz lomar umo oz Yeshua's Mashiachu. Hashem is their strength, and he is he's the fortress of salvation for his anointed one, meaning the Kohen Gadol in this context. We find also these 5, this quintuplet of expressions in Hanissim itself, whether we say it on Hanukkah or on Purim. Same introduction for the inclusion in the prayers for Purim is being used, Hanissim. So there also in the Ashkenazi prayer book, we find 5 expressions. Hanissim, Halapurkon, Halagvuras, Halatshuvas, Halamilchomas. For the miracles, for the deliverance, for the mighty deeds, for the salvations, and for the wars that Hashem fought for us. This adds up to 2,913. And where do we find the 2,913? Well, there is only one pasuk, there's only one verse in the whole of Tanakh that has exactly this gematria, and it is in Divrei Hayomim, in Chronicles, when it tells the story of King Yehoshaphat, who was attacked by the Edomites and the Ammonites and the Moabites, and they formed a coalition, and everything seemed to be lost, and he sat down in sackcloth and ashes, but a miracle deliverance happened. And then the narrator in Divrei Hayomim, in Chronicles, says the following: Vayihi pachat Elokim al kol mamlechos ha'arotzos b'shom'om ki nilcham Hashem im oyevei Yisrael. And then the fear or the dread for God came upon all the kingdoms of the lands of the world when they heard that Hashem had gone to war, had fought against the enemies of the Jewish people. So we trust and we hope that by lighting the lights of Hanukkah, we can in some way justify all the things that Hashem has done for us as a nation throughout our history, even in times when it was only a small victory, like the victory over the Hellenists was a small victory. We're still surrounded by that very same culture that we tried to reject in those days. And we ourselves have been contaminated. The oils are well contaminated in our age as well. But we have still the pure oil of our Hanukkah lights left. And as long as we light them, we will, in some form or another, merit the divine salvation and deliverance that we have seen even in the darkest times of our national history. Verenigde